Hello, fabulous superstar Aries. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of February 2025. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological month, without a doubt. Big moves happening in the sky now. Boys, at a very special time, and it truly is so special now. Powerful energies are with us. Since early October of last year, Jupiter has been retrograde, and now it is going to be on the 4th of this month that Jupiter goes direct. Whenever it is that a planet changes directions, we feel its energy that much more, and its symbolism becomes that much more heightened. Jupiter brings with it blessings. It expands whatever area it's moving through, and since the middle of last year, you've had Jupiter diligently moving through a part of the sky for you that has to do with communication, learning, the information that you're coming across, the conversations that you're having, perhaps synchronistically, spontaneously, or more formally through email or letters. It has to do with your siblings, cousins, and neighbors as well. Well, it is in these very areas that either they serve as a conduit of great news in your life, or it feels as if you finally get some sort of a green light to move forward. You get the okay, you get that document, that letter that says, yes, it's all systems go. Now, outside of this, it might also be a time when, just related to these people I mentioned, you feel like there are positive developments taking place in their lives. Even if it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you directly, you feel it and you feel grateful for it as well. If ever there was a time to be open to random interactions with others, this really would be it, because it is in those moments, very spontaneously at that you can feel as if a lot gets better very quickly for you now, as you see things differently, understand differently, and are able to then focus the mind and the words in the direction you desire to go. And your requests, your words themselves just might be downright magic for you now. The 7th of the month is a huge astrological day. That is when Neptune will meet the North Node in the sky. The nodes are very significant. They speak to karmic occurrences and those promises that we have, the karmic contracts we have with ourselves and others. Whenever a big planet moves over either the North Node or the South Node, it is as if a doorway opens, and it's kind of like what needs to happen, it happens. With the North Node, it's about what's new, what's entering, what's pulling us forward towards more, greater love, greater wisdom in a more meta sense, but more literally, when Neptune meets the North Node in at least one area of life, it can feel as if these soul level understandings and opportunities and people present themselves to us. Now, for you, this is a meeting that's taking place in the sign just before yours. This part of the sky has to do with fortunate karmic closures and also karmic blessings as well. So even though whenever a planet meets the North Node, that doorway opens and it feels like out of nowhere sometimes, new people, places, things, situations can rush in. For you, it really is going to feel that much more like out of nowhere. Some of the best stuff could just find you. But remember, this is Neptune. It represents a dream and a hope, not always what is actually materializing in a more practical sense. And so some of the greatest blessings that arrive now may very well be the spiritual kinds, your awareness around spiritual forces that want you to move in positive directions. Well, it feels very much on the surface and just might fill you with a lot of gratitude as you see nothing less than magic taking place for you now. The 12th of the month features this month's full moon. Now, this full moon is involved in what astrologers call a T-square. It is a larger configuration of tension with the moon on one side, the sun on the other, and both are speaking with Uranus. This brings with it a surprise a minute, even a shock a minute. It's a moment that feels unexpected, maybe even uncomfortable, that we have to respond to very quickly. But Chiron in your sign is speaking in supreme harmony with this full moon. So that tells me that whatever happens now, it is positively healing. It affects something very deep within you, or it inspires you to bring forward a healing presence for yourself or for others. For you, it is this full moon that happens in a part of the sky that has to do with creative endeavors, creative fulfillment and projects. It has to do with the children in your life as well. So where it comes to children, this might be a time when your fertility catches you off guard, takes you by surprise, seemingly out of nowhere. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Of course, there are other ways these energies can work out, but just know that is a possibility you may need to be mindful of. But for all that, this can speak to, well, a child in your life behaving in a way that's kind of rebellious, but then you get to bring forward that healing presence for them and for you to fortify that relationship. Now, outside of children, if it is that you use your creativity to your advantage, whether it's personally, professionally, or otherwise, this energy can play out in terms of what you're actually creating and how you feel about it, or it can more relate to your desire to share what you do and have that reach more people more broadly. And it's possible now that some opportunity you thought was a sure thing might feel less secure at this time. This part of the sky also has to do with gambling and windfalls. And let me tell you, with all this unexpected energy, gambles do not go off as planned. In fact, even the most calculated risk can feel like it turns left. And when we see this energy, it does suggest that if you have a sense of agency over whatever risk you might be taking, well, then you want to perhaps calculate those risks, those bets that you're hedging, to a better sky, a more supportive sky than we have at this full moon. But if it is that it isn't necessarily your choice, right? Like you are in a moment, you have to make a choice, you have to take a risk. Well, just know that outcomes can be rather unexpected at this time. This is a very wild card energy, so it's important to stay open, to understand what you're learning along the way of whatever it is that might pop up now. What seems like it is the worst thing might end up being a great blessing, but vice versa can also take place. What seems like a huge windfall actually might not be. So, I like to say, pace yourself and be yourself. That's definitely something you're going to want to remember under the light of this full moon. The 23rd of the month is huge for you. It is so significant for the Aries out there. And that is because that is the day that Mars will go direct. Your ruling planet, after being retrograde, going all the way back to the beginning of December. That's how long we've had this retrograde going on. Well, now here we are. And with Mars going forward, something within you is about to feel a whole lot more clear. It is as if your own energy finally frees where you didn't realize it was stagnant. Now, as Mars moves forward, Mars is going to be hanging tight a supremely harmonious connection with Saturn. So this makes this energy that much more significant. But we again have within orb Mars going direct while speaking in a conversation of tension with Chiron in your sign. And so these factors together tell me that whatever is taking place, especially where it comes to where Mars is for you at the foundation of your chart, having to do with your past, your living situation, and your family of origin, well, whatever might be happening, there's a sense of you feeling vulnerable, feeling insecure, and maybe even what's taking place now, pushing some very deep buttons within you. And yet, for all that, it's like you understand what's really going on, what's the right thing to do, and what it is, what actions it is that you can take that are going to fuel a healthy sense of self-respect on your part. It's about being mature, being practical, and being responsible that helps you to navigate this time from a place of inner security that much more. Whether it is seeing the past differently, or whether it involves a current circumstance, and even with the vulnerability here, there's also the potential here for finding a sense of stability within it. and what you come to realize now, or even the practical changes that take place in terms of your living situation that might be a factor for some Aries out there. Well, these are the types of changes that may take a moment to get used to, and yet they have the potential to last, to be part of you feeling more secure right where you are at home. The 27th of the month features this month's new moon, and this new moon takes place in the sign just before yours. This is where earlier in the month we had Neptune meeting, having that connection with the North Node here. And so again, this is a part of the sky that has to do with what's happening on levels of soul and psyche and spirit. It's a very karmic part of the sky. And when I say karmic, I mean that stuff just happens, it just shows up. Closures can take place, but also the new can come in, especially because this is a new moon. Now, this new moon will be speaking in a conversation of tension with Jupiter, and that is all about overdoing it, and you not realizing that you're overdoing it to the point where you may not be getting enough rest. You may be, as they say, running yourself ragged, right? Like burning the candle on both ends, as they say, and you don't realize it until you're just way too tired to move forward. A lot is being worked out on those very deep levels, and so just making sure that you get enough rest can go a really long way to helping you to work through some things. And then that way, it isn't that sort of unconsciously things are just popping up, they're just showing up, that demand very quickly that you respond to them in a way that could end up having you feel tired. You've already replenished certain reserves, and whatever it is that you may need to understand on those levels of soul, psyche, and spirit, well, that resolution can come in the dream space for you as well. Now, Mars is in somewhat of a connection, not as precise as it is with Jupiter, but yeah, we've got a connection of supreme harmony between this new moon and Mars. At this point, Mars will be standing still, but technically newly direct. Once Mars is direct, we're going to have a few days here when it is that all major planets are direct. Now, that's not going to last very long because as we get to the end of this month, Venus is slowing down, standing still in the sky, and will early next month go retro officially. And I'll be here to talk about it every step of the way. And be on the lookout, of course, for a Venus retrograde special horoscope. It'll happen over the course of February at some point. So be on the lookout for that. But for all that, understand that this new moon energy is about that clearing that ultimately can be very enlivening. It has the rootedness of Mars, but the karmicness of what's happening with the North Node here. A sense that there's a higher will that has a drive of its own, but it's ultimately working very much to your advantage. And as part of the mystery, it may not necessarily be evident, but I think you'll know, if only intuitively, where whatever's changing now actually is very much on your side. Now, speaking of Venus, where it comes to matters of love, it was on the 28th of January that Venus stepped into shadow. Well, it is going to be on the 4th of February that Venus, while in shadow, will move into your sign and is going to start slowing down. And by the end of the month is standing still. As I just said, will go retro next month. But this is the time you absolutely want to be paying attention. The first days of this month, certainly, but also as we're moving towards the end of the month, because this is the pathway that Venus will eventually go retrograde and walk over for a second time. And then this is also the pathway that once Venus is direct, will walk over for a third and final time as well. Now, a big chunk of this Venus retrograde season is with Venus in your sign. If anybody out there is going to find themselves becoming aware of where past romantic patterns are playing out, it just might be you. But also when it is that Venus is stationary in particular, standing still in particular, She is closer to the earth than she might otherwise be. Passions run very high. And this is especially true with Venus in Aries, and especially true if it is that you are in Aries, as you are. Those passions are going to be running very high for you. There is a magnetism here. However, just know, whatever might be happening, it's not the final word. You just might come to see whatever's taking place now differently, especially once it is that we navigate further. And by further, I mean once we navigate into April in particular, once it is that Venus goes direct. And again, I'll be here to talk about it every step of the way, but yeah, that's when it's like what's happening this month in particular just might look very different. Once the retrograde happens, it magnifies confusion. However, understand that so much of what's happening now is about showing you something about what is in your own heart. For those of you open to meeting someone new, what you think it is and what it actually is could end up being very different. It may not necessarily be of great consequence, right? You had a certain assumption, somebody led you to believe something. Once you know the truth, it isn't that big a deal, or it's an amusing story. But sometimes it is of consequence. And so it's going to be really important to be patient, as it is you're very likely to connect with new people this month. Because that Venusian energy is so strong for you, you are a magnet, nothing less than that. And especially right out of the gate, as Venus steps into your sign, is very quickly going to align in harmony with Pluto. That makes love a transformative experience. And this is a connection that's going to be repeated a total of 3 times over the course of the coming months. This Venus retrograde is going to take us right into the middle of May. That's how long the larger season is going to be. The path has already begun. That pathway of Venus is already walking. We are now, as we start this month, in the beginning stages, and pretty soon it's going to be a journey, a stage that feels that much more significant for you in particular, more and more in terms of understanding where you are in love and how you feel about it. Remember, with Venus retrograde, the overriding question for all of us out there is, do I love it, this person, place, thing, or situation? And this is going to be a central question that is going to define so much of your experience for the first part of this year for you now. For those of you just starting to date someone, understand that whatever you feel it is, what you think it is, and what it actually is, could end up being very different things. And that really is okay. Also know that now that we've begun Venus retrograde season, and especially with Venus in your sign, breakups that happen tend to not stay broken up. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do exactly what's right for you to do in light of your unique circumstance. But for all that, this is a time when your own desires are very much on the surface, and that might include the desire for love as well. And so pace yourself, because in many ways you are seeing what it is that you're hoping for. And that's a beautiful thing about love. That's what allows us to love in the first place, especially in the first days of this month. Venus enters your sign and quickly moves into harmony with Pluto. And that is a lot of passion and a lot of intensity that's going to feel right on the surface for you. And for those of you in an established bond, well, I want to say again, breakups that happen tend to not stay broken up when we are in the midst of a larger Venus retrograde season, especially once it is that Venus enters your sign. Those of you who already have a good relationship, this is where the love can feel that much more important, that much more strong. And that can be a wonderful thing, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily perfect. And if it has not felt perfect, whatever those challenges might be or have been, chances are as you're starting this month, they've already started revealing themselves to you. So just pace yourself at this time. If it is that you have felt for a while that you might not be in the right relationship for you, Know that this is a time of a journey, of understanding more deeply of what your heart is really wanting, and whether or not this moment and this situation with this person can meet you there with what it is that you believe love is for you, your own insecurities around love, why you may be staying in a relationship that doesn't feel right for you. These are going to be larger guiding questions for you. Now, always do what's right for you to do in light of your unique circumstances, but know that the discontent, but also the desire to love, it's going to feel like it all meshes together. And it's going to feel especially strong as you navigate this month and beyond as part of this larger Venus retrograde season. What I love about this month for you, there's so much here. It's a valuable and meaningful astrological moment. Wow, it is a jam-packed month, isn't it? And for you, the Venus retrograde season is going to be huge. It isn't just about romantic love. It's love in all kinds of ways, love for yourself as well. Remember, the guiding question is person, place, thing, or situation. Is there love here? Do I love it? This is a time of garnering experience. You will have your light bulb moments once we move further into the spring. Once it is that Venus goes direct, that's when you're going to understand whatever starts happening now differently. And that's when you're going to understand what stays and what goes as part of your unique journey towards greater love and greater wisdom as well. Well, thank you so much for watching. You can get a video like this each and every week for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month with Choose Your Membership rate over at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com or thefutureismagical.com. Now, higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. I also want to add that I do have a very limited number of consultations available. You can learn a lot more about getting a consultation with me or with Andy of Wise Ass Astrology. Yes, you can book a consultation with him as well over on my website. Just check out the consultation tab and links are below. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great month. Enjoy.